This is Football Primetime. I'm your host, Bill Dean. I'm, of course, here with my two co-hosts. We got Brett and AJ. Brought to you by Primetime Radio, courtesy of Mr. Wu himself, who was so graciously able to add Brett on his phone. Sam Wu is the best. I'm behind the glass tonight. Sam is off gallivanting, getting ready for some games, and he's a busy man. Schmoozing clients. But you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Of course, leave us a 5-star review if you would be so kind. Thumbs up, whatever you want to give us. That's much appreciated. We feel the love. We're in week 9. Week 8's behind us. It's pretty crazy that it's the season's moving as fast as it is, and it does it every year, right? Every time we're like, "How's it week 10? How's it week 15?" How's are we at the Super Bowl? But I was thinking about a couple things. Hey, how are you guys doing? Good to see you, Brett. Your Steelers suck.
Oh yeah, tonight will be. I'm not looking for it. As you guys heard me earlier saying, expect an appearance from the Yeti tonight. If anyone listening is unaware of who the Yeti is, that is the man King Henry, Derrick Henry himself. For those who don't know this comes from the deep threads of Reddit. So take that with however you want. But people have discovered, obviously, Derrick Henry plays a little bit better later into the season. Well, it's also a little bit colder later into the season, so he's developed the name the Yeti. He comes out when it gets cold. But someone took this to an extreme and has found that, coincidentally, when it snows in Vermont, that is also a direct correlation with Derrick Henry having a big game. It snowed in Vermont last night, and the Steelers don't look too good coming off of last week's loss, so I'm not looking forward to – I'm kind of looking forward to it, but we'll see.
Yeah, I put money already on King Henry, just like AJ did, although AJ's chump change over here. But
well, see, it's funny. I kind of picture now Derrick Henry just like monitoring like the Weather Channel and just like specifically for like the state of Vermont goes off. And like, oh, it snowed. It's game time.
Oh, he knows.
It's my time. It's my time. Yeah, I like that.
Back
I like it a lot.
2019 King Henry.
Well, we'll get into him and we'll get into that team. Obviously, Will Levis with a monster opening game, something that pretty much no one saw coming. We'll get into a couple other things, but I want to get to injuries because it's getting ridiculous. And I'm sure someone out there has stats and all this other hoopla about, everybody's injured the same amount. It's every year. But I feel like more significant injuries have happened to key athletes this season. From Aaron Rodgers to Justin Jefferson, and now Kirk Cousins, who was having an MVP year, was leading what everyone kind of thought was a regression team in Minnesota Vikings to the NFC North crown. They obviously make trades. We'll get into that too. But it's a guy that everyone wants to succeed, especially if you watch the quarterback show. I've liked everything about Kirk Cousins, and I wanted him to be a Jet. I was hoping they'd trade for him. Obviously, that's out the window. And the Jets also, once again, do nothing on the trade deadline, so whoop-de-doo.
Hey,
but
you signed somebody to the practice squad.
Yeah, well, Roger Saffold. That's actually, we'll talk about that too.
Trade for Devontae Adams.
We did.
Yeah, but I don't.
Evans.
The problem is we don't need Devontae Adams. We need a quarterback because that's kind of what gives the ball to everybody. Because if you guys didn't watch, the game on Sunday might have been the worst piece of garbage I've ever watched in my life. And that's coming from a Jet fan who's experienced losses that have been worse and wins that have been worse. The perfect stat, 23 points scored between two New York teams, 24 punts. Because God forbid any offense decides to show anything. And I'm sure we'll get a lot of people on Twitter talking about this, but it was embarrassing for both sides. I mean, you had to watch a toilet bowl, continually just flush itself. And, Zach Wilson, everyone's like, oh, he comes out in the last minute and wins the game, blah, blah, blah. Well, how about the first 59 minutes? He continually put himself in terrible position. I know the Giants defense is good, but are we serious here? Any competent quarterback would have won that game a lot earlier. Well, Tommy DeVito almost beat us.
two things. One, that reminded me of a Iowa Nebraska.
Oh, it was Big Ten West.
Big Ten game.
Big Ten West.
So terrible. So great. And then I do have a fun stat.
That's Wisconsin Purdue.
Whoa, hey, come on.
Wisconsin destroys Purdue, right? First of all. We don't hold a candle.
Hey, we got Aiden O'Connell starting in Vegas this week.
I'm worried for him, to say the least.
Yeah, he's going to get shellacked.
But Bill, real quick, Zach Wilson is the first QB since 2000 to win a game with multiple 25-plus yard completions within the final 30 seconds of the fourth quarter.
Wait, repeat that? He's what?
He's the first QB since 2000 to win a game with multiple 25-yard completions within the final 30 seconds of the fourth quarter. He's also leading the NFL with 3 comeback victories this year in the fourth quarter.
The comeback victories is good. The 25-plus yard completions is a pretty hollow stat because it also means that you needed more than 50 yards in the final 30 seconds, which is just not a situation you typically want to be in. So that, I don't know if that was good, but the 3 comeback wins is solid.
Patrick Mahomes didn't have 2 25-yard passes in that game against the Bills where he won it in like 13 seconds.
I mean, that might be playoffs.
Playoff game.
I'm going
was that playoffs? No, that wasn't playoffs, was it? Oh, it was playoffs.
Yeah.
I guess it's a non-playoff. Okay, all right. I still hate
that was
Zach
the
Wilson.
only game
Zach
I could think of where I was like,
I mean, Zach Wilson is the poopiest player I've ever watched. I'm trying to be nice about this.
Elite, come on.
Oh my god, I can't stand it because then it's so frustrating.
I have a good comparison for what the Jets look like right now. That'll probably not make you guys happy, but it'll be fun to laugh at if everyone wants to.
Are you going to say your beloved Steelers with Ben Roethlisberger as a rookie?
Oh no,
where he
was never
pretty much the worst stat line of all time.
Absolutely not. I was going to say the Tim Tebow Broncos year.
Oh God!
That's
even worse. What it looks like.
I'd rather have Tebow because I know that he sucks, and I just know that he's going to run around like Zach Wilson's just like he has talent, and he's just a dum-dum in the brain. If it's so frustrating. This team, they could be so good if they just got a competent quarterback. And now I'm going to start to get angry because it's so infuriating. If Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback of this team, they might be undefeated and the best team in the league. That defense is that good, and they're embarrassing themselves by sticking out someone that just plain old blows. And I know Trevor Siemian's not the answer, and I'm not saying I want Trevor Siemian, but they should have seen this in the beginning of the season when clearly they knew that Zach Wilson wasn't ready and he was learning a brand new system, and they had 2 years of knowing that he sucks balls at playing football, and they should have had a competent backup, and he should have been the third stringer. He could have sat behind it, and then they sit on their duff at the trade deadline. We're going to get into this now. They sit on their duff at the trade deadline, and instead of spending a 6th-round pick, to get Josh Dobbs and do a swap of a 6 for a 7th, they just were like, okay, we're good with our crappy ass quarterback. And it's ridiculous. They could have gotten so many things. You could have gotten Ezra Cleveland from the Minnesota Vikings, a very good guard, which you need offensive linemen because they keep dropping like flies. You could have got him for a 6th-round pick. And everyone's like, oh, we don't have a 5th, so you couldn't really best it. You could have easily traded. You could swap things. There's tons of things we could have done. A 4th for a 4th, a 5th for whatever. I don't care. There's reasons. There's means to go out and make a trade and either add a wide receiver. Donovan Peoples-Jones would have looked really good as a 2nd or 3rd option for this shitty quarterback. You could have gotten Ezra Cleveland. You could have gotten Dobbs. You could have tried to get Jameis Winston. I don't care. Just give me something else so that when he fails, you bring this guy in and you have a competent backup quarterback. And that's just it's ridiculous. This team, it's such bad mismanagement from the coach to the GM, everybody, and it's going to cost the Jets in if they get to the playoffs. It's going to cost them because this kid can't do it.
I think they're just biding their time. I think they believe that they can hit a wild card spot, And then from everything that we've been seeing right on social media from Aaron Rodgers himself, it sounds like he's coming back. So I think this team just thinks that with the defense, they can keep them in games. And then Zach Wilson, Mr. Fourth Quarter, just has to win a drive, get him into field goal range, and that's fine. And then just wait until January when Rodgers comes back.
Your punter should not be the best player on your team. And that's, Gillian was terrible for the Giants. Well, Gillian was not very good. He was god-awful. But Thomas Morstead was the player of the week because he kept pitting the Giants back deep, and the defense was doing well. Saron, getting some messages. Bill, I agree the injuries are getting ridiculous. Jets, I don't know.
But, I will say this about the Jets is AJ did touch, and I think he hit the right point there, is if there's no videos of Aaron Rodgers throwing passes pregame without a boot on, I do think you guys make moves at the trade deadline. But the fact that you guys were sitting at 4-3, Aaron Rodgers is throwing passes, I think that changed everything.
It's not happening.
I hate it too. I don't know what the man drinks or what goes in his Kool-Aid besides ayahuasca, but he's got the GM and the organization drinking it too. And unfortunately for you guys have to sit back and watch. And he's definitely convinced the organization that he will be back by the end of the year.
He has them brainwashed.
He's like, I'm coming back. Them of that.
Yes.
So because of that fact, I think that's why you guys didn't make the moves that you wanted to at the deadline, because he's sitting there saying, don't do it. We'll be fine.
AJ, what was the thing you sent me? Because it was fantastic. It was, and I'm trying to get to it, and obviously ayahuasca is, I'm sure, a pretty big one because he's clearly on something. But it was AJ. What was that text message you sent us? All right, here. And this was a tweet. The Jets keeping themselves alive so we get to see if Aaron Rodgers can return an Achilles with crystals and dolphin porn in 3 months is really an amazing gift to humanity and science. Absolutely fantastic, because that's what's happening. I mean, Rodgers has this like crazy. Whatever he's doing, it's fantastic because it's giving so much hope and. To Jets fans, and it's gonna throw us. He's gonna squash us so hard, and like week 14, when we're expecting him to possibly come back, and he's like, "Yeah, I can't come back. My Achilles is still terrible." And I'm gonna everyone the Jet fan is gonna be freaking out. I'm gonna be like, "I told you so." You could have. And now looking at it, obviously, if we had traded for Kirk Cousins, that would have been a disaster because that was a ticking time bomb.
I was just going to bring it up. You called for weeks to trade for Cousins, and how mad would you have been if you had gotten him?
I wouldn't have been mad. I would have just been like, "This is the most cursed franchise in all of history." I still wanted them to go out and get Jameis Winston. Like, there's tons of guys they could have gotten out, or they could have tried to bring Jacoby Brissett. Like, just anybody. Give me a competent backup. Because Trevor Siemian, they don't have, confidence that he's going to come in and be able to do any better than Zach Wilson after he stinks and a half. We talk too much Jets. Marshall on Facebook Live. Mike Tomlin career, only one rookie has ever won in Pittsburgh. Dak, others lost 1 in 26. And then Sarah, I think Zach Wilson deserves more credit. At least he's not choking the fourth. Well, he's choking the first third. So I don't know. Disaster. All right, let's get to the teams. Obviously, some good games last week. And speaking of the Giants, they had Tommy DeVito come in. They were without two quarterbacks. That's defense played well.
Too,
I can't fault the deep.
How is Tommy DeVito? That whole
backup
explanation
not allowed to pass.
That makes zero sense to me.
It's
You're
bad.
A backup quarterback in the NFL. How, as a coach, do you not have confidence that a quarterback on your roster can make a pass or even know the plays? That makes zero sense to me.
Yeah.
You see it all the time as running backs all the time. These teams will bring off guys off the street. Like, look at Darrell Henderson with the Rams right now. He was not signed by any team, and they had multiple guys that they brought in, and instantly he's elevated to the starting running back simply because he knows the playbook. So there are like little nuances, but I agree with you. A backup quarterback in a system, at least a screen pass, something.
Yeah.
But there's got to be some continuity, some common plays that he should be able to understand in a week, or else why do you have a job?
That's fair. It's definitely disappointing, especially last year when you see Baker Mayfield go to the Rams and in one day. So literally not know a single play in the playbook and lead a game-winning drive in the fourth quarter. So there's definitely a curve there. And evidently the Giants believe he's on the bottom end of that curve. So
it just mind-boggling, especially coming from somebody who's supposed to be an offensive guy in Brian Dable. Like, I just don't get how you don't prepare your quarterback. Your quarterbacks,
the Jets stuffed the box because they were not worried about a deep pass at all. That's the first time, and I haven't really watched the Giants that much on a full 60-minute basis, but that's the first time I've lost confidence. Sorry, that's the first time I've lost confidence in that coach, Dable. I think that was bad. It was real bad. Bad play calling, but bad all around. You got to give your team a better chance than that. I mean, the Jets didn't do it, but they at least had a little bit more of a competent quarterback. So, trade deadline obviously happened. Some pretty big names were moved on the defensive side. Offense, obviously, Josh Dobbs goes to the Vikings from the Arizona Cardinals for a sixth. They swapped a sixth and a seventh. You had two big trades on the defensive line. You get the Bears, which was a little bit of a surprise, grabbing Montez Sweat, who's a very good player. And if they can get him to sign long-term, which he actually came out and said that he's going to see what's going to go on. So I hope that the Bears can get him signed, or else that's a real bad trade. But giving up a second. You had the Giants a couple days before that giving up Leonard Williams to Seattle for a second and a fifth. Giants, very good trade for the Giants. They weren't going to re-sign him. He's coming up on the end of his contract. And then you had the 49ers making the trade of the day, and they're gearing up for another playoff run and another Super Bowl run like they haven't already. But, grabbing Chase Young to put with one of the best players in football in Bosa, I love that trade. He garners double teams, obviously the middle, and now you have a guy on the edge that's. We'll actually see if Chase Young is that good, because this is the best player he's played with on defensive line. Not saying that Washington's not a good defensive line, because they've had some great players there, but you have a guy on the other side that clearly demands double teams. He's I think the second best player, second or third best player outside of Aaron Donald, T.J. Watt. That's scary. It really is. We said Ezra Cleveland went to Jacksonville, which I love that move for Jacksonville. He is a legit good guard, plays left, right. It's great depth for that team, and the Jaguars looking scary, especially in the AFC South. I mean, they're going to take that division pretty easy, I believe. But you guys tell me any other moves that you liked or moves in general.
Definitely ones that were kind of head scratching. I mean, if you're a Minnesota Vikings fan, you love the move for Josh Dobbs. But at the same time, if I was a Vikings fan, I was kind of hoping that they would go the other direction. You already have the news that Cousins isn't going to come back this year. Kind of sitting there with the team. I would almost have looked to unload players instead of add them. But, I mean, I guess the Vikings are saying, we still think we can make the playoffs. So in terms of trying to be competitive, I thought Vikings getting Dobbs is great. Great for Dobbs. I mean, if you look at his career, he's been all over the place. This actually might be his... Well, despite what happened with the Cardinals this year, but that was more of just a random strip up. This will probably be his first legit chance at being a permanent starter. You got to think that the Vikings might move on from Cousins soon, and especially with Dobbs playing decently well, it could be a viable option for them to eventually successfully move on from Cousins and look to go elsewhere. So all around, I think it's great for Dobbs. Okay for Vikings fans, but that was the one I liked the most.
Yeah, I like that one too, only because Dobbs actually has weapons too. There's speculation obviously with Jefferson coming back potentially next week instead of missing 4 to 6 weeks that he was projected. So I like it. I'm a little confused with the Bears trade with getting Montez Sweat and not having a potential plan in place right away to re-sign him. You're giving up that draft capital, and I would make sure that he is re-signed right away. Not we'll just see how it kind of ends, at the end of the year, and we'll do our best to sign him. Like I just don't get that. You give up your that draft capital for him. I would make sure you get him signed and locked up for however long you want. But
there was a couple other ones. Eagles getting safety Kevin Byard, which was a decent move. You had the Bills getting Roswell Douglas, who, was it Josh Allen said blanking sucks. Pretty funny. And then Lions with a sneaky move, Donovan Peoples-Jones. I liked it. I thought that's a good move. They get a 6th-round pick, I think. But you've seen that, what's his name? Williams has a little bit of he's had good long catches, but kind of been off the radar a little bit. And this gives him a little bit of a background seat, which might be better for them and for this team. Give Peoples-Jones 3 targets and then maybe a couple deep balls for Williams, and it'll help a little differently. So I like the move. I thought it was pretty good.
What you want Williams to do in terms of finding a role in the offense. I think this is good for him because it's going to clearly define his role as the deep route, deep ball threat. In terms of Jameson Williams becoming what people thought he could be, this is definitely not going to help there. I mean, we're talking about a 1st-round draft pick who was highly touted out of college. Obviously, the injuries, the suspension, it's kept him off the field. And you guys watched the game last week. You could tell he looks good, but he always has those 1 or 2 plays where you just kind of watch. You're like, what happened there? And you can always you can just kind of tell something's off. And unfortunately, adding Donovan Peoples-Jones, who I believe is actually a very good wide receiver. He's been kind of stuck in Cleveland behind other wide receivers for a while, but he's a very good wide receiver. And I think he's definitely going to pass Williams on the depth chart. Just how many is it going to be enough for Jameson Williams to have a role at all now, being almost delegated to the 4th, maybe even 5th option, as long as you're considering probably Gibbs and Montgomery being the 3rd or 4th option.
Yeah. Well, and obviously the tight end, which is, Sam Laporta has been awesome. We've talked about him before.
I got Laporta as their number 2 option.
Yeah,
we got the Sun God, Laporta, and then the backs there at
really
3 and 4.
Yeah.
So,
and Peoples-Jones,
then Peoples-Jones coming right at the back. Williams might be the 6th option in this offense now.
Agreed. AJ, anything? So let's I'll ask you. You can obviously let me know about what trade you liked, but I also want you to talk about the Raiders because they smashed the end of the night, firing their offensive coordinator, their head coach, their GM. Rumors about how Mark Davis did it, because some funny ones out there, but came out that he basically he was out trick or treating and he found out about it with his kids. Adams came out and said that they needed a change, some sort of change. He's been asked for a trade. They didn't give it to them. What is this team doing?
And that's a head scratcher too by Mark Davis, right? Is you fire your coach and your GM after the trade deadline.
Yeah.
That's
this wasn't
head scratching.
After. This was the day before, day of. We're talking apparently, if you guys haven't heard, teams were trying to get in contact with the Raiders and they couldn't get in contact with them, thought they were ghosted, and then find out the next day, everyone was fired. And they're like, oh, that makes sense. But teams were trying to acquire for Devontae Adams, and the Raiders probably should have picked up that phone call.
Yeah, Mark Davis, big hiccup,
Makes zero sense to me, especially because this team is obviously rebuilding. They obviously don't have this team's in shambles, right? You have Devontae Adams. I just don't understand what you're doing as a owner, right? Doing the disservice that you're doing to your team. And it all starts too with hiring Daniels, right, in the first place.
Yeah, I agree. The issue, I agree getting rid of the head coach. I agree getting rid of the offensive coordinator because both those been horrendous. The GM is a little bit of a head scratcher. I don't think we've been looking at the Raiders and saying that they don't have talent on this roster. There's talent on the roster. It's not amazing. It's not great. But firing the GM at the trade deadline definitely cannot be the best. And this is why I feel bad for Raiders fans, because you want to blame it on the coaches, but at the end of the day, this to me feels like an ownership issue, and unfortunately, it's just going to keep getting worse. How much faith do you have that Davis is actually going to hire the right guy?
Well, he right now is paying. He's going to be paying, depending on what happens with the Gruden thing, between $40 and $80 million for his head coaches that are fired now. Between McDaniels, Josh McDaniels, and obviously John Gruden. and he can barely afford the team as it is. If his mom dies, he's screwed, which is going to be fantastic. They're going to have to sell the Raiders to Tom Brady, which is going to be very funny. All right, let's get to what's on this week's schedule, and then we will get out of here. Obviously, we're watching Tennessee, Pittsburgh. Is there a score right now? I didn't see anything. Right? Is it 0-0? Oh, Steelers 7-0.
Finally find the end zone.
Wow. I mean, Jalen Warren needs. Oh, by the way, the Jalen Warren fine for that bogus hit on whatever happened with that is such garbage. And JJ Watt even came out and said it was the worst thing he's ever seen. I think the guy makes $50,000 and they charge him $45 for that game.
AJ, if you haven't seen it, it's not even like a hit. It's just a regular play. He's blocking. He's smaller, so he's trying to go high on the block. He doesn't go into the neck or head area, but he gets called for an illegal hit, fined $48,000. Jalen Warren's an undrafted free agent. So a $48,000 fine, that's his game check. So Jalen Warren played for free 2 weeks ago. And
bad. So on bye, you have Denver, which no one really cares about, but Detroit, San Francisco, Jacksonville, 3 very good teams. So this week's a little light. Like I said, Tennessee at Pittsburgh right now, 7-0 Pittsburgh. Sunday, some pretty good games, including a 9:30 a.m. showdown between Miami and Kansas City in Frankfurt, Germany. I will be up early trying to watch this game. This is obviously the game of the week. It sucks that it's at 9:30, but that Sunday night game is pretty tantalizing between Buffalo and Cincinnati. On Monday night, obviously, Jets, LA, which, I'm not counting my chickens here. I'm a little worried. But also Dallas, Philly. You have Baltimore, Seattle. And what was the other game that I liked? It was Minnesota, Atlanta, with now Taylor Heineke coming in as the quarterback there. 2 possible playoff teams. What do you guys like? What do you guys think?
I mean, I think you said it right. I really like that Buffalo Cincy game, but that Dallas Philly game is very intriguing to me too.
Yeah.
I obviously wish that the Miami KC game was later. I wonder if the NFL is looking at this now and being like, shoot, I wish this was a primetime game that we could have flexed into, being the Sunday night game or even Monday night. I don't know if they can do that, but I think the Dallas Philly game is really good. Be interesting to see how, the offense, in Dallas can still roll, if they can. I still don't trust Prescott at all. But I think Philly's secondary is exploitable. So we'll see.
Brett?
Definitely looking forward to Eagles, Cowboys. It's just always fun to see Cowboys fans get humbled by the Eagles. So that's always a great joy. Seahawks, Ravens, of course, that's going to be going. I kind of like the Vikings, Falcons.
Yeah.
I feel bad for the Vikings. If Kirk was going to be in this game, it would be interesting with Heineke coming out. We could have a big gun-slinging match, but it's still interesting only because winner of that game is pretty securely in control of a playoff spot. You wouldn't believe it right now, but one of those teams is going to be very in control of a playoff spot after that game. So looking forward to see that. I'm hoping it's the Falcons. I'm a Heineke fan. I want to see him do great things. Also a fantasy owner of Drake London, so there's a little bit to go there. But besides that, Bills, Bengals, Sunday night. Bengals have finally hit their stride, and the Bills, they've been up and down in recent weeks, but they've not hit the low that the Bengals has. So I'm hoping for a shootout on Sunday night.
Agreed.
Yeah. I'm a little.
Go ahead, AJ.
Real quick, I'm a little worried for the San Fran. I know they have a bye, but the past 3 games have not been good offensively. Brock Purdy has not looked good, and I don't know if he's a little concussed or something. But it's good for them that they have this week to kind of recoup.
They get the bye. They'll get Debo back after the bye. Debo, I mean, he opens up everything for their offense because it allows Kittle to have the middle of the field to himself, and it adds you already have the outside threat in Ayuk, and then not only do you have McCaffrey in one flat, you can just go stick Debo in the other flat, and you can almost run an offense by having 5 people standing still. And when you can do an offense like that, it's going to make anyone look good. So I expect them with Debo back to get right back on pace.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to pun, but he's going to get his head right, and he'll be able to then have options back, with him, whether it be Debo and McCaffrey. And McCaffrey, 17 touchdowns straight. He's going to get the record next week, or when he comes back. McCaffrey, Debo, Kittle, Ayuk. I like, even some of the Elijah Mitchell is a very good backup running back. I still think San Fran comes out of this bye and they're going to be world beaters. And I have them as the team out of the, right now, the NFC. I think they're the best team there. This Philly Dallas will go a long way to kind of determining what happens with this division. I like Dallas's D. I think Philly needs to step up. Their defense needs to step up, needs to show that they can be a top unit. They haven't really shown that yet. They've gotten burned a couple of times by, just last week with Sam Howell. That Buffalo Cincinnati, you have Burrow coming back, feeling better than he's ever felt in since getting injured, I think in, preseason. Josh Allen, the game last week, they win, which they needed, and they needed to look a little better, but it was only a little better. They're, to me, still a questionable team, and it'll go a long way to showing what you can do if you can beat Cincinnati, because they have a decent defense. Yeah. Obviously, that offense is electric. They're humming. They're getting guys back. Like we said, between Burrow and T. Higgins coming back and looking, a lot better last week. That's a very good team, and there's going to be Super Bowl contenders, and Buffalo right now needs to prove that they can be that same thing. I don't know if you guys got anything else, but it's going to be a good week 9.
I do have one thing, and this is a little bit of a weirder stat or sports fact. So obviously, was it last night, right? With the Texas Rangers winning the World Series. This past year have all been firsts of teams winning their first championships, right? So you have the Rangers, you have the Nuggets, you have the Golden Knights. So could this be a year of, the Detroit Lions, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Jacksonville Jaguars, Buffalo Bills?
Ooh.
Could it be one of those teams that completes the quadfecta of firsts for championships?
So it was not Cincy, Jacksonville,
Buffalo, and then Detroit. Yeah.
Call me crazy. I like Jacksonville the most out of those.
Oh,
Jacksonville.
I like Detroit.
Yeah, but I'm worried about the NFC, and 49ers I think are a better team. So that's, the AFC's a slugfest. There's 4 teams that I think could be legitimate contenders, and Jacksonville I have as one of them. I like their quarterback. I like the running game. Travis Etienne's been awesome this year. They have good wide receivers. Christian Kirk's their number 1. They still have Calvin Ridley. They have Zay Jones. Their defense, Oluokun and a couple of the guys there. And, I'm sure our brother-in-law is not going to be very happy just to say it, but they're a legit, and obviously they've had, years and years of misery like Jets fans, but they're a legit contender. They are a very good team, and they made just an absolute awesome move with Ezra Cleveland. I think that was outside of Chase Young, I think that was the best move that a contender made. I really do. All right, just some trivia. We'll get out of here. Brett, you got anything else? You good?
No, but just piggybacking off what AJ said, did you guys now know that with the Rangers winning yesterday, there's only one team in Texas out of the major sports franchises that has not won a title? And that's the Texans.
Texans, yeah. No, they're not winning this year.
All right, so on to some trivia. So since we're watching him live right now, Will Levis had a memorable first NFL debut, being the Falcons 28-23. In his first game, Levis threw 4 touchdown passes. He is the 3rd player in NFL history to throw for 4 touchdown passes in their first NFL game. Which 2 other players did he join?
Ooh. You have to give me some insight.
4 touchdown passes in your first NFL game.
I feel like
one
it's
hint
random people.
is one. Yeah. One hint is he played for the same franchise.
Oh,
it's not Mariota.
It is Marcus Mariota in 2015.
Wow.
He did.
All right.
Who's the other one?
The other one is a Hall of Famer who played 18 seasons.
All right, still not going to help
memorably us. for the Vikings. Way back in 1961, he made his NFL debut.
Oh, Fran Tarkenton?
Fran Tarkenton.
Yeah. Not bad. I like it. We'll be back next week, obviously. Fantastic week 9. Week 8's done. We'll see what teams do now. Coming down the stretch, obviously, trade deadline's gone. No more helps coming to teams other than, maybe a free agent here or there. But let's hope the Jets can get going. Same thing, Giants. They still have a chance, Giants, even though that one stat I saw where they had negative 9 yards passing is pretty god-awful.
They just got rid of everyone at the deadline, so it's going to be hard.
Yeah, it's the most punts.
TJ Watt blow up Will Levis.
Oh, yeah? Nice. All right. This is Primetime, football Primetime. Yeah, good job, Bill.